Hello and welcome. The goal of this podcast is to get listeners connected with others in the sports industry because they say it's all about who you know, and now you know us. All right, hello and welcome everybody. This is your host 𝘾𝑼𝑚, and today you're listening to the Constant Sports Podcast. This podcast is committed to connecting you to others in the sports industry, and they say it's all about who you know, and today you know Stuart Sokoloff. Thanks for joining us today, Stuart.
Thanks for having me.
So I came across your profile on LinkedIn. I know you got a pretty big following over there, a lot of experiences. So I think this would be a great episode for the listeners and the viewers that are kind of just starting out in the industry, but have also been in for a while. That can kind of lean on some of your experiences and insights as you've been with the Frederick Keys. I assume that's an Baltimore Orioles affiliate. They had similar colors. And
Yeah.
then over with you did some Spalding Hoop Classic, Springfield Thunderbirds, and then obviously with the Phoenix Suns, the Israel Association of Baseball, something I'm very interested in learning more about, and I think the viewers will too. And then now with manager of group and season ticket sales at Athletes Unlimited, which is also extremely intriguing. So I know it's a lot to start, but we'll break it down and we'll kind of start from the bottom and work our way up here. So Stuart, I guess what inspired you to go down the sports industry to start, and then we'll go from there.
For me, I look at the memories I have with my family, my friends growing up, and it all seemed to relate around sports. And I feel that's why most of us do work in the sports industry, is because of the experiences we have growing up. And specifically, we can get into it, but one of the reasons I'm in the position I'm in is because I want to create those memories for friends and families that they can go back to their dinner table and that they're going to remember for the rest of their life. And I love giving back because if I can impact one person to want to also help create memories for other people, it means I've had a successful career.
I love it. Yeah, very admirable. And I think a lot of us can, feel that as a lot of the people in sports have either one, wanted to be a professional athlete, or two, just love the atmosphere around it and everything that comes with sports. Can you recall, I guess, this kind of goes into your, upbringing and whatnot, but can you recall an influential mentor or person that early on in your career guided you maybe through some of your early experiences, or did you have someone that you leaned on at all?
Yeah, I think most people rely on friends or family. For me, it was my dad. He has a sales background. He helped guide some of my personal life more. A number of mentors in the industry, including Ray over with the Orioles, he helped guide me to go into sports sales. I initially, just like most students, wanted to go into marketing or
Mhm.
operations or be a GM. And we got lunch one day, and I tell him this once in a while, but that one lunch truly did change my life. He opened my eyes to sports sales, and you're not a used car salesman, but you're really creating memories. You're in the memory making business. Also, a number of other people with Mike with the Red Sox, Jeff with the Padres. I relied on them heavily when I was trying to navigate my career and figure out truly what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah. And those types of, like you mentioned, Mike, Jeff, and Ray were very, very influential, it sounds like. And it seems like that lunch and other early moments kind of directed you to where you are now, rather. Can you maybe speak to some of your first jobs in sports, whether it was, in the minor leagues of baseball, doing business marketing, some of the early internships where 'cause a lot of the viewers, a little bit of context, are 18 to 22 range from the analytics that we have, kind of the podcast and what have you. And so obviously just starting out in their careers. So maybe you can, explain a little bit of what is to be expected in some of your early internships, some of your early jobs when you're just getting into the industry.
I didn't know what I was doing. In all honesty, I was like any other student. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. This job seems cool. I was applying to vice president jobs. I
Yeah.
had no clue. And it was through one of my very close mentors, Rob. Um, I was living in the DC area. It was my freshman year. And I was telling myself, maybe I want to do something this summer. Like I'll work or maybe I'll enjoy my summer breaks, go
Yeah.
somewhere. But he afforded me the opportunity to intern with the Frederick Keys in the business and marketing um, role, and it provided an opportunity for me to open my eyes into what professional minor league sports looks like. It's not just showing up to the ballpark and everything's set, the tickets are distributed, the marketing's ready to go, the players are there, the food is cooked. But it's opening my eyes seeing that there's a whole organization behind making these events run. So going back to your question, I didn't know what I was doing. But one person, one of my mentors, allowed me an opportunity to interview with the 𝘾𝘼𝒂𝒍𝒆𝒔 and open my eyes to what a first internship is. So if you don't know what you're doing, perfectly okay. Just start applying, interviewing. And I think through the process and through the interviews and through the questions they ask you, you'll start to figure out what exactly you want to do, just based off some of the questions they ask in the job descriptions.
Yep, right. And I had a similar experience. I one summer I worked for the 𝑻𝒊𝒄𝒌𝒆𝒕. I think they're a rookie or single A team for the Los Angeles Angels organization. Very similar experience. Get tossed in there, and the minor league baseball is it's much different than you might seem. It's a grind. I mean, they're still playing, however 80 some odd games, and you're doing everything. I mean, you're all over the place, but I think it's a great experience. I enjoyed it, and I think there's a lot of different avenues you can look into at a minor league because, you know, the front office is probably like two or three people in there, and any hands are helpful. So they'll put you over game ops, they'll put you over in sales, they'll
Hmm.
put you over in, event management, all that stuff. So yeah, and there's tons of teams. So if you're kind of looking for a summer internship, the minor leagues, I feel like they have a plethora of job openings, especially as we're coming into kind of their season here in a few weeks. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on. And Stuart, as you kind of leveled up, you could say from the Thunderbirds to then the Baltimore Orioles, different roles, account executive, baseball ops. Seems like baseball was kind of some of your early jobs at industry. Was that something that just kind of your path led that way, or were you interested in staying in baseball?
I'll make one more point on the previous topic, Connor.
Hmm.
I think minor league baseball is the best place to start for anyone
Yep.
because, as you mentioned, you're doing everything. You're wearing as many hats as possible,
Oh
and
yeah.
once you do get in the pro level, you really don't leave your department. I'm not part of the. It's a little different now. But when I was with the Phoenix Suns and 𝑘FC, I wasn't a part of the marketing meetings. I wasn't handing out exit flyers. I wasn't pulling the tarp.
Yeah.
In minor league baseball, it's the most. It was probably some of the most fun I ever had. Um, my career has revolved around baseball a little bit. I grew up diehard Yankee fan, pinstripes on my wall, and then I went to go work for the Orioles. My between my junior and senior year of college, and I realized that it's a business. I'm a fan of whoever pays my paycheck. And yeah, we're all sports fans, but you have to be a fan of the team you work for, the organization you work for. Because at the end of the day, some of the success that you're going to have is based on what is happening on the field or on the court. It's going to impact your job, but you still got to be a fan of the sport. But I go wherever my career allows me to progress.
Mhm.
So I've hopped around a number of different organizations and leagues, but still love baseball.
Perfect. Yeah. And so I guess we'll go into kind of the Phoenix Suns because you're kind of on the East Coast for a while there, and then made your way out to Phoenix and the 𝘾𝒃𝒄𝒌𝒆𝒔 as you talked about. So can you speak to maybe because maybe the listeners, viewers don't know exactly how kind of business development works. They might be used to just marketing, ticket sales, but can you kind of talk to that role as a business development for an organization like the Suns and the Mercury?
Yeah, Suns and Mercury are pretty comparable to most professional leagues in terms of the way ticket sales work at a high level. So ticket sales, most of the time you start in an entry level inside sales um, role,
Hmm.
and where they're going to be hiring 6 to 12 people every 6 to 12 months. So if you're looking to break into sports, it's the easiest position to break in. It's also the hardest to break out of because most people either leave sports realizing they don't want to work in sports, the long hours, low pay.
Hmm.
They realize that sports is for them, but ticketing is not for them. Or they realize that this is truly for them. It's not for everyone. There are days where you don't want to show up to work, just like any role. Um, but from there, from inside sales, you're making 80 to 100 calls a day. You're setting X amount of appointments per day. You're closing X amount. Then you can get promoted into typically one of two roles. Either you're focusing on season tickets or you're focusing on group outings. And then from there, you can transition to more of a service role where you're building the relationship, you're renewing them, and then you can also transition into a premium role where you're focusing on suites for basketball, specifically courtside seats, more of that premium hospitality. So that's typically, and then you can get to a manager role. That's typically how sports ticket sales work, but you're still selling everything.
Right, yeah, selling all the packages and whatnot. And so that kind of leads me to my next topic of discussion, where you're at now with Athletes Unlimited, with manager of group and season ticket sales. So just kind of maybe some of the listeners aren't familiar with Athletes Unlimited, so you can maybe start and talk a little bit about what Athletes Unlimited is, how it works, and then a little bit about your role and things you do on day to day.
So, Athletes Unlimited, it's a network of professional women's sports leagues made up of basketball, softball, volleyball, and lacrosse, where we truly do put the athletes first. They're in our board meetings, our sports specific meetings. They truly do get a say in the decision making process. The players vote on a player executive committee. Those PECs are player executive committee members, 3 to 5 athletes per sport are really involved in the decision making process of everything we do. Specifically for my role, I'm on a team of 3, and what we focus on is selling the experience, selling the sport. We run 5 leagues. Softball has 2 different leagues, 5 leagues within 5 cities within 7 to 8 months, and we
Wow.
all change it almost year over year. So it's very fast paced. We're figuring out different ways we can help market. I'm in the marketing meetings every week. Um, they're very progressive. They're like, hey, let's try this, and if it doesn't work, great. But we know we've tried it. They're very open minded, and we're always looking to progress forward and figure out what other tools the leagues are using to help progress, and we can implement it right away without going through some of the bureaucracy that you see at some of the older leagues, the top 4, more well known leagues right now.
Mhm. Yeah, so what are some of the, maybe trial and error things that as the leagues, rather new compared to, like you said, the big four, you guys kind of have room to try different things. Are there certain projects or events that you've tried that succeeded that you're going to keep doing year after year or season after season?
Yeah, so we tried a almost like a mini camp prior to our softball games where we invite local youth teams to come out and go through hitting stations. They measure different measurables, bat speed, running, arm speed, etc. And we bring out a handful of our players to help coach them, help write down the stats that they earn, and then we do a Q&A and autograph session. So our players are very accessible. We have Olympians, pro athletes from around the world that come play. So it truly is those for these little girls, like meeting their heroes that they have on their wall on posters, on the back of their jerseys. So it provides that experience. But we've seen that successful year over year. We started that about a year and a half ago, and it just provides a great opportunity for the fans, for the little girls that look up to these athletes. And as far as I know, we're continuing that for this coming season.
Perfect. Yeah, and I want to touch on the kind of the women's sport aspect as we've seen, quite the increase, especially with the women's professional soccer league and all the kind of the rise of women's sports, you could say. So where do you see, as someone who works, I guess specifically in that industry, where do you see, this women's sports sector going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see it being something where it's prime time. Um, we're all helping each other out. So the new volleyball league that just started
Hmm.
last month, we've been helping them. Like we've been complimenting each other. A number of our players are over there playing. Same with the WNBA. We start our basketball season in 2 weeks. A number of WNBA players are coming to play in our league.
Wow.
So we're complimenting each other. You can go watch all our sports on ESPN. So I think it'll be whether it's our league, the NWSL, obviously the WNBA, will start to be household names. Just getting with all the money being poured in and all the marketing going into it. I think a lot of these little girls are now going to start to grow up having grown up with Athletes Unlimited, the WNBA, the NWSL. It'll start to be one of those, maybe not to the top 4 quite yet, but leagues that people want to work in and will be waiting in line to go work for and attend.
Yeah, very cool, and I agree there. I think it's been cool to see kind of the rise. And I know the WNBA has probably been around longer than some of the other leagues that we've talked about. But it is cool to see, and it's very, commendable that, Athletes Unlimited is kind of taking that mission on, you could say. I kind of want to change gears a little bit and talk about the Israel Association of Baseball. So, is that kind of World Baseball Classic? Are you helping grow the game in Israel? Kind of talk to us, kind of what that's all about.
So there's two facets within the IAB. You do have boots on the ground in Israel that's helped growing the game. I actually had an internship opportunity, but decided to go with the Phoenix Suns instead. And it's growing the game in Israel. I'm on the side that for the World Baseball Classic, I was with them prior to the Olympics, more of those big tournaments.
Hmm.
Not so much of a day-to-day role where I'm doing things day to day, but when tournaments happen, I'll help out on the ground and I'm a yes man. I'll do whatever's needed to get done. I'll do whatever is needed to make sure
Right.
the game happens, make sure players and coaches and staff are good. It's been a really, really interesting, fascinating experience.
Yeah, no, very cool. That's one of the things that kind of jumped out as I was doing a little bit of research before this podcast, and so I've never seen someone in a position like that. So very cool, and I think it just goes to show, especially for those in the sports industry, at those types of positions, maybe not they're not off the top of your head, and but they're out there, and I think it's very cool to one cool aspect of the sports industry, different roles that aren't just GM and agent, right?
Exactly. And I think initially starting out, you have to say yes. You can't say no
Yeah.
to anything outside of certain realms. Once you get more into your career, you can learn to say no. You have to take calculated risks. But I think in school and right out of school, learn to say yes, even if it's something you never thought you wanted to do. Just say yes because you never know who you're going to meet there
Hmm.
and where they're going to be in 10 years. And when you reconnect and they might have a job opening and hey, remember when I volunteered for this basketball tournament or for Gatorade that one weekend years ago?
Yep.
You're going to set yourself apart tenfold over people who have they've never seen their name.
Yep. 100% agree there. It's very, availability and basically just saying yes early on in the career is key, growing
Yeah.
into, your further roles and whatnot. And kind of speaking about, day-to-day lifestyle structure and whatnot, are you still working remote? I believe on LinkedIn it says remote. I don't know if that's still true or not. Do you enjoy kind of the
Yeah.
remote aspect? Do you think that's going to kind of stay around in the sports sector for much longer? Kind of what are your thoughts on that kind of structure?
So I've seen the change. When COVID first started, I was selling group outings for the Phoenix Suns, which didn't go quite too well. But as I mentioned, being in group sales, you're dealing with a lot of industry leaders within the city you're in. So I was able to, what I thought was a dream job, selling corporate or selling medical devices. I was in a hotel 220 days in about 10 months.
Cool.
And it just wasn't quite a life I wanted to live long term. The money was great, don't get me wrong, but I'm not in a career for the money.
Yeah.
I'm in it for creating memories and that's what I do, what I do and what I love. So I did see and that was fully remote within Phoenix, but I have seen it. I was with the Aspire group on the San Francisco Giants campaign. The season ended and they cut the contract with us not due to productivity, but because they were starting their inside sales program again. They were bringing everyone back internal. They were going away from remote remote a remote organization, at least from last what I heard. AU has always been fully remote. I'm in a very unique position where my fiance is a travel nurse. We move every 3 months. I just need
Uh,
my laptop to do work.
yeah.
But I see a lot of organizations going back into the office or going to more of a hybrid role where you're in the office 3 to 4 days a week with one day at home. I think it's a great balance. You're able to balance being at home, getting personal things done so you can focus when you're in the office. I love remote though. I'm able to control my day. If I need to go throw in a load of laundry after this, I can. If I need to make a quick lunch, I can do it without having to worry about going out to eat or running home and commuting.
Right, right. Yeah, it's perfect. And then kind of speaking similar day structure, whatnot, as you've grown in your career, are there certain skills and or I guess things that you've tried to master or notice that you've needed in the sports industry?
You just have to be a people person. Yeah, the biggest skill you can learn is, as you've probably seen, Connor, is customer service.
Hmm.
This is an entertainment business. You're in the memory making business. our job is to make memories. Obviously, we're a business, we have to drive revenue, but learning to navigate the customer service field. So I say the two best jobs you can have in high school and college is to go work retail and go work in a restaurant. You'll learn very quickly about customer service if you're in one or the other. Um, so I would say the customer service aspect and then the networking aspect, it's a really small industry.
Yeah.
People say like once you're in, you're in. Um, I describe it as if there's 30 NBA teams, and I know the Celtics have 3 to 4 group sales staff, at least last I heard. We had 12. So let's say for even numbers, there's just 10 per team.
Yeah.
10 per team, 30 teams. There's only 300 of us in the world.
Right.
So it is a very small like industry to be in where if I need something, if I'm at the Bulls game in Chicago and I want to go to a game, most of the time you can reach out to someone on LinkedIn and say, hey, is it possible to snag tickets? Because they know you'll reciprocate when you're in Phoenix if you're in their city.
Mhm.
Um, but also, I'm a nerd when it comes to the business ops. So I just love learning about what they do, how their suites work, how their different arenas work. But networking and customer service are probably the two biggest things you need to learn.
Yeah, right. And then I want to touch a little bit on kind of your end of that response there with the different stadiums and group ticket sales strategies. Based on your experience in that industry, are there certain teams that do it vastly different than other teams, structure-wise, or is all the NBA rather somewhat similar, based upon the arenas and whatnot?
This could be a very political answer. I'm not running for Congress, but every team does great for what they have. Um, the NBA does a phenomenal job in the WNBA with something called Team Marketing and Business Operations. Well, they'll have a consultant from the commissioner's office in New York that oversees a handful of teams, usually 4 to 6 teams of similar calibers. So when the Phoenix Suns, when we won 19 games, we were comparable with the other teams that were winning not as many games as we wanted. And they were coming in saying, this is what other teams are doing that are successful. Here's what you guys should do. Because you can't compare us, maybe now, but you couldn't compare us to the Warriors, the Lakers, the Bucks,
Right.
because their team on the court drove a lot of the business.
Mm.
For us, it was we were figuring out creative ways to help drive revenue and business, but they do a great job with that. I think the Suns are always a little bit biased here. The Suns are always do a great job. The Timberwolves, the Hawks, the Cavaliers have a phenomenal program. The Nets are building something special. The Bucks have an awesome organization. I mean, I could go on and on about every single team, but those are the Miami Heat, the Mavs. Um, those are and then you have the Warriors and Lakers, obviously, but those are
Right.
probably some of the top teams that come to mind.
Yeah, and then obviously, the on-court product with any team, football, baseball, is going to, drive help in that aspect, obviously. But that is cool and interesting to hear about. I've never really dove into that, so that is something that kind of intrigued me as you were giving that answer. And then kind of going through your career, maybe it can be early on or kind of what you're doing now, but has there been a favorite project, event, maybe a negotiation that you can speak about that kind of stands out in your career to you?
I think of two. The first, I always thought I wanted to go into corporate partnerships. I still have a little bit of an inkling, not so much anymore. But when I first started my career, I was like, I'm going to be in corporate partnerships. I'm
Mhm.
going to go from ticket sales to corporate partnerships. I realized I like more the day to day with ticket sales. But I think of so I helped sell Mountain America Credit Union based in Utah.
Mhm.
They were expanding here in Phoenix pretty heavily, pretty quickly. I sold them when I was an intern over with the Guardians, or what was the Indians and Reds
Mhm.
spring training facility. They opened their first branch over there down the street.
Right.
Driving by, saw them opening, prospected them. My manager and I sold them. When I went over to the Suns about 20 minutes away, they already had a number of branches open. I brought that to the table with the Suns, even though I was in ticket sales. And that was a really fun peek behind the curtain about how a pro team truly does partnerships.
Mm.
They're still a partner to this day, and I still like to take a little credit that I'm the
Oh
one
yeah.
that introduced them to the Suns. But the other main one that I had a lot of fun with was the Tempe Union High School District Career Day at the Suns. they've been a great partner with us for years and years. I think they still do it, but they bring in a few hundred students from around the valley, from around Tempe, and we set up between 8 and 15 different stations. They go through a few minutes at each, learning about different departments within the organization, getting to interact and ask questions, and then they get to go to the game after. We bring them down courtside, watch the game, watch warm ups, excuse me. They get to participate in a number of our group experiences, high fiving the athletes as they run out onto the court, among other experiences. But that's always a fun day for me.
Oh yeah, no, very cool. And yeah, definitely, put take credit for that. Tip your cap to the Mountain America Credit Union, dude. That's very cool. And it goes to show kind of, even that wasn't your role necessarily, you bring that to the table, taking the extra steps, providing value, I think is something that the listeners, viewers can take from that story. It's not just, okay, here's my role, here are my responsibilities. I'm just going to do these. You can, venture out a little bit, like you did and bring it to the table. And I'm sure your manager and others were thrilled with that, and how that worked out, especially for them.
Yeah, it's making yourself valuable. There are
Mhm.
people lining up at the door to get your job once you're full time. I would say never take it for granted, but realize that you have to make yourself and indispensable to the organization and figure out ways, whether it's on a day to day or bringing up partnerships or bringing in new systems to the organization, figure out ways to help run more fluid. Um, just making yourself valuable, not just another cog in the wheel.
Oh yeah, for sure. Making yourself valuable is key. And then as we come close here in the next few minutes, I just want to talk a little bit about the sports industry and maybe from your experiences. What's your opinion on kind of what makes the sports industry different from other industries, for those who are maybe interested in the sports industry, but maybe they're like, working in a medical sales, they're in, a different business industry, but can you kind of talk about the two differences in your opinion, or maybe there's more?
We work at a sexy place. We work at an arena. We work at a ballpark. Like it's freaking cool. Like obviously I'm a little different because I'm remote, but when you're working at a minor league sport, a collegiate sport, a pro level team, like you can go sit in seats, take a 5 minute mental break, and like that's your office. Most people walk to a coffee shop, or you can go walk down on the court. Like it's freaking cool. Like
Yep.
you walk into a room and you have the sexiest business card. Um, Obviously, those are the glitz and glamour. Those are the benefits of working in sports. But it's live events. It's customer service. It's thinking on your feet. But more importantly, as I've been saying, it's a memory making business. People want to come visit your work. People want to spend their hard earned money. People want to spend a lot of money. Some people want to spend a little money. So it's just different. It's not people like nowadays. People say, "Oh, there's no job that's 9 to 5." It truly is not 9 to 5, maybe out of the season. In season, you're working, you're in the office maybe 7 to 8 a.m., 8:30 at the latest, and you're there till 9, 10, 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like it. And everyone around you is working equally as hard. Yeah, you get fed a little bit, but it's just fun. It's a fun industry.
Yep. No, agreed 100%. And obviously there's, downsides and drawbacks to any industry, but we might be biased, but I do think the sports industry is one of the cooler industries to be in. I don't know, unless you're like a venture capitalist and working with billions of dollars. But anyways, that's sidetrack. As you kind of grow in industry, stay informed in the industry, what are some ways that you stay up to date regarding industry trends? Maybe some resources you use to kind of stay up to date with, maybe, oh, like, oh, I saw this article from wherever. Maybe we can implement that at Athletes Unlimited. Are there certain places you look and keep top of mind?
Yeah, I think conferences are a
Mm.
great way to do in-person networking and figuring out what's going on in the industry. I think you talk to most professionals in Sports Business Journal is by far none the number one place to
Yep.
figuring out where the trends are, not only within your your department, but what's going on in other departments and really having a wide breadth of knowledge about what's going on in the industry. Sports Business Ventures is good. Listening to podcasts like this one. The Clubhouse is another great way to network and um, figuring out outside of your day to day. But I mean, I wrote an article about if you're moving across the country for a new job in sports, like how do you build a community around you?
Mm.
And then also Teamwork Online is a great place to figure out jobs, who's hiring. There's always new types of roles popping up that you've never heard of. So it's
Yeah.
a good way to keep top of mind of what's going on in the industry in terms of roles.
Agreed. And then as you touched on, the Sports Business Journal has their, morning buzzcast, and usually it's like 8 to 10 minutes. I mean, that's easy. Just pop it in, listen to it, and at least
Yeah.
give you some talking points, right, as you go throughout your day. Especially if you're working in sports, you might as well know what's going on, in other leagues or industries and things like that. So I think I agree with those the outlets that you kind of brought up. And Stuart, thanks for joining us today. Now we're going to close here in the next little bit, and I'll give you the floor. Um, the floor is yours if you want to, shout out any companies, any people, whatnot. I'll just give you the floor, and then we'll conclude from there.
I would say if you haven't watched Athletes Unlimited, it really is unique. It combines fantasy sports, which we do have fantasy, with professional sports. Players get points for everything they do, and then every week they redraft teams. So it's unlike any sport you've ever watched. But I would say if sports interests you, network, reach out to people on LinkedIn, the Clubhouse. Just ask for their time. Most of us want to help. We're not ignoring you. We're just busy. Follow up with us. Um, and then get experiences. That's the best way you're going to learn. You're not going to learn to run an event in a textbook. You're not going to learn how to network in a textbook, go to conferences, set up Zooms, hop on calls, and also figure out if this industry is truly what you want to do. Do you want to work 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours in a week for not that much pay that you can go to another industry and 3x your salary real quick?
Right.
Um, it's a lot of fun, but figure out if this industry is truly for you. Take a leap, say yes, don't say no. You never know who you're going to meet.
Yep, couldn't agree more. I echo those statements you made, Stuart, there. And thanks to listeners and viewers for watching today. And that concludes another episode of a Constant Sports podcast. And special thanks to you, Stuart, for stopping by and sharing your experiences, knowledge, and some stories for the listeners and viewers. So you'll be able to find this on Spotify, Apple, along with YouTube. And we'll see you guys next week.